Do you have a story to share with the world? Of course you do. We all have stories to share. An Anchor podcast allows you to share your interests in a way that connects to others all across the globe. If you have been considering starting your own podcast and don't know where to begin, Anchor makes it easy to record, edit, and publish with the click of a button. You can even add music. Whether it's crime dramas, self-improvement, paranormal adventures, or tips about parenting, you too can share your unique imprint on the world. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. You've got this. I believe in you. Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that everybody is doing well. We have a really exciting show today. I have invited a guest. Her name is Brianna, and she's with Animal Rays. And Brianna is an animal Reiki Ray practitioner, as well as an animal color ray practitioner. And I found Brianna on my Instagram page. And I know I have discussed in several of my episodes my abilities to speak with animals and to heal and to communicate with them at a very young age, and how that ability or that gift kind of shut off for many years for me. And now I am beginning to tune in and tap in to that ability and gift. And speaking with Brianna, she also has had very similar journeys with animals. So welcome, Brianna. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's dive into this a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what you do with animals. And I'm going to share some photos too as we're going along. So just keep talking, and that way people can see some of the amazing things you're doing.
So I think it's probably a good idea for me to just kind of tell my story a little bit of how I got here, just to give some backstory. So in 2018, I had my spiritual awakening. And that happened actually through figuring out that I'm an empath. So with this discovery, my world opened up and I realized I'm extremely empathic, and so much more than even that. But from there, I have always passion to work with animals. And I came across Animal Reiki Source, which is Animal Reiki taught by Kathleen Prasad. And I started taking animal Reiki classes. And through taking these classes, I learned how to work with the animals, and also discovered so many gifts that I have, and also really did some deep healing within myself to be able to hold space for the animals and be this conduit of source energy. So that's kind of how I got here. And I started offering animal Reiki sessions this year, and through my spiritual journey and awakening, I've discovered a new modality called it's the animal color ray. And so what I do is basically work with the animal's higher self and do energy healing with them and clear out any blockages or density within their bodies. Because just like humans are going through this ascension process, animals are as well. And, animals are our greatest healers, and they could also use assistance as well, I have found. So it's been a really cool journey. And I would say that color is actually, I would say energy and color are my first languages. I just always understood color, and it's kind of hard to explain, to someone who doesn't have that resonance with color. But I've always had this really great relationship with color in my life, and as well as energy. Reading energy is my first language. So
and I feel that animals see differently than we do, and they see in these vibrant colors, because I recognize sometimes when my cat will notice things. He'll pick up on things really easily, and I'm like, buddy, what do you see? He's looking above my head,
especially.
Or I can feel the energy around me. I just don't necessarily see it. And I know that he can sense it there. And so when you're doing, when you're reading these animals' auras, how does that work? How do you see that?
So my business, Animal Rays, I connect with them heart to heart through a ray of light. And I go up into, I guess, my higher self and meet their higher selves, and I tune in, and I'm able to, my main spiritual gifts are clairvoyance, claircognizance, and clairsentience, in that order. And obviously we all have all these gifts, but that's kind of my strongest gifts. So I'm able to clairvoyantly see their energy bodies. I see their aura. I see the colors swirling around them. And I, in a color ray session, am given certain colors to use in their energy body. And I also work with angels. That's a big part of who I am, is my work with angels. And so they come in, and really I'm just a conduit for their work. And I also can see their auras in a Reiki session. So with both the animal color ray and the animal Reiki ray, I provide an aura photo for the human. It's not for the animal, but I think it's fun for them to see what their auras look like and how I see them.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's amazing that people can see auras. I know I'm developing my clairvoyance. I think that when I was younger, I shut that gift off, and now I'm starting to develop it more, but I have enhanced clairsentience and clairaudience. And when I communicate with my little guy, Charlie, he, it's through clairaudience. Like, I can really pick that up. Do you recognize that at all in your sessions?
I do. So it's funny because sometimes I'll get a smell, sometimes I'll hear things, but for the most part, I really see. I download information. That's the claircognizance. So clairaudience, like sometimes I do hear things that sound like it's outside of my inner voice, but I always know when it's not my inner voice. I'm able to determine the two because it comes in really quickly. So that's kind of my claircognizance. And sometimes I guess I get confused if it's like clairaudience or claircognizance, like inner hearing. So, but sometimes I do hear things that are outside of me, but yeah, so it comes in that way for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's so neat to meet other empaths and intuitives, and
I know,
just learn. It's so fun because, and I think even too, the two of us connecting, we're activating each other, in each of our abilities, which is even more awesome. And I was sharing with you before I started recording, my cat was on my lap all morning. He didn't want to leave. It was almost like he knew we were going to be communicating today. Yes. And so animals are so sensitive, and they can pick up on things very easily. And I want to talk a little bit about, I notice in a lot of my client sessions where they have pets, their pets are having ailments and issues, and I'm correlating it to ailments and issues that the person is having. And oftentimes I'm seeing almost like the pets are a reflection of what needs to be healed within the person, and they're mirroring it back, so to speak. Do you recognize this in your sessions as well?
Definitely. And one thing I tell my friends, I call them my friends, make sure you're paying attention, like the shifts within yourself, because our animals are so interconnected to us. They know what's going on in your life. They know about your upcoming doctor appointment. They know that you're going to work and coming back around this time. They know, they're so in tune with us, and we forget that because we don't communicate verbally the way that humans do with animals. And so I have found that they very much correlate to their person. And when they have shifts within their bodies, or even their humans have shifts, like let's say you go get a Reiki session, your animal will feel that shift. And we're so interconnected. It's such a beautiful relationship. And I found that animals are the greatest healers, and humans are messy. We bring our baggage and our stress and, our worries, our anger, our trauma. And they hold such a beautiful space for us that's so unconditional that, it's such a gift. And what I do is I assist them in whatever they're needing. But really, animals are healers. I mean, for me, like my animals are my greatest healers for sure.
Yeah. And animals are like supercharged transmuting empaths, I feel like, right? Like they, when you're sad, your dog will lay its head on your lap, or when you're having a bad day, your cat will want to, rub up against you. And honestly, I feel like sometimes cats, people will say, oh, I'm not a cat person, but your cat's rubbing all over me. I'm like, it's because it's cleansing your aura. It's cleansing
you're
your
welcome.
And so animals, they can see things in other realms, dimensions, realities that we can't always necessarily see. And I know as intuitive empaths, we can oftentimes pick up on it through our other senses, but it's something that we don't always visualize. I know for me, I've had several people over the past couple of years pass away. And I can tell when they visit me because of the way my cat responds, and I had one situation where I had a friend pass away and I didn't know yet. And my cat started to respond very weirdly. And then about, 15, 20 minutes later, I got a phone call from a friend saying that this person had passed away. And I'm like, he just visited me. Like I knew it by the way that my cat responded, because he was always in tune with my cat. He always asked about him. And so I feel like they're there when we have our our guidance team around us, our ancestors, our angels, our higher vibrational aspects of self come in. Our animals are right in tune with that. And they can recognize things well before we recognize it, in the physical reality.
What's cool is like, they're like our guides that are here with us in the physical. And that's really special, because we do have ancestors and spirit guides and angels, but these are our guides here with us in the physical. And that is so special that they are that for us.
They are. And I've had, I would joke because I used to have two cats, and one I'd call my 3D cat and one was my 5D cat, because just the way that they acted. But, my other cat, I ended up having to put him down. But the thing is that he held space for me during a time when I was transmuting a significant amount of energy. I was working in a hospital setting, and being an empath myself, I was transmuting, and then he was transmuting what I was bringing home. And so that kind of led into a lot of physical ailments for him. And then when I learned the emotion code, he was kind of my little guinea pig, because I would practice a lot on him, and I did do a lot of healing on him, but it got to a point where I could sense what he was telling me. It was time for him to go, so I was like, thank you, little buddy, for helping me through, these very dense times in my life. And so now, the cat that I have now is a little tripod, and I found him in the middle of the road in a rainstorm in Florida, and so he came into my life in a very unexpected way. And he is so, just tuned in, and I think he has such a good high vibration, and I can sense that he loves crystals. And I'm sure you see that with some of the animals you work with. He loves rose quartz. It's one of his favorites, and he'll find the rose quartz out of all the crystals, and then he'll rub on it and lay on it. And here, I can show you a little picture of him that I had.
They do. They can feel the energy of those things.
Yeah. And so he's just a, very special little guy. And so, but I recognize that too, when I'm working with clients and they're like, my dog has is having a UTI or kidney problem. And immediately I'm like, okay, fear sits in the kidneys. Where are you bringing fear into your life? Because your animal is transmuting that. Or, maybe they've suffered a loss, or they're grieving, and then their animal is having asthma or some sort of problem with their lungs or their heart. And immediately it's like, okay, let's go back and take a look at where the client is having a problem. And then, we can clear the animal too, but oftentimes it'll automatically clear up with the animal once we clear it up with the person, so.
Yeah. And I've found that's kind of tricky for me to convey to the person. I'm still kind of finding my footing with that, but I do find a lot of times they hold, the stress of their person in their gut, and they're taking that on. That's what I mean by they're our greatest healers, and they take that on. And then how do I tell them, hey, you're giving him too much stress, like you got to work on yourself? But that's a great message to everyone, is to really just tune in with yourself. And when you do that, you're really helping your animal. When you tune into your own body and say, where am I holding stress, and releasing that and doing your own healing journey, like I said, heals them as well.
It does. And you see that ripple with children as well. You know, when you come home and you've had a stressful day, your kids are little transmuters as well, just as your pets. And so they're working on overdrive to try to transmute any energy in the space, any energy that you've brought home with you. And I do encourage people too. Charlie's primarily indoors, you know, because he's a tripod and he's, you know, and so he doesn't get outside to ground, but I do have grounding mats around the house where he can sit on it and feel connected to the earth. And it's really important for animals, specifically indoor only animals, to be able to connect. And my other cat, he loved to chew on my plants. And I didn't at the time recognize why he was doing that. But, you know, as I began to learn more about energy, I recognized he was trying to ground himself. That's exactly what he was doing. So oftentimes when our animals are reaching for earthly things like soil or, you know, our plants or things, they're trying to ground to be able to transmute the energy. And shungite is a really good crystal to have around for your animals. They can rub on it, they can lay on it, maybe have it under their pet bed. That's also a very grounding, clearing, cleansing crystal. And, you know, and just if you have the ability to take your indoor cat or dog out on a leash, do that, you know, and let them just lay in the grass for a few minutes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're so in tune with your animal. You know what they need and provide that for them. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And there was a time I wasn't. I think it's like you know, when I started to go through my awakening and understand my gifts a little bit more, he started to communicate with me clairaudiently, almost telepathically. And I was like, ooh, who's speaking, you know, with me? Like, what is that? Is that really you? You know, and I'd look at him and then he'd lay on my lap and I'd hear his voice in my head. And then I'd look at him and say, is that you? And then he'd reach his paw up at me, almost like a confirmation. And I'm like, whoa, like this is you, you know, I'm doing some Dr. Dolittle stuff here, you know, but it's really neat when you learn how to communicate with your animals, and each and every one of us has the ability to do this. It's just it's like a sport or any other hobby. It's learning. It takes some practice, you know, to do it.
Yeah, and everyone's different with it as well. So it is about practice and learning yourself of what are your gifts, what do you receive, how do you receive information, because everyone does, and everyone is able to communicate with animals. And one tip that I give to people is to talk to them like you and I are talking. Talk to them like you would someone else, because oftentimes we're thinking of pictures as we're speaking and they're picking up on that information. So you really are clearly communicating with them. And then it's about getting quiet and receiving back what they're saying. But it's absolutely possible for everyone. And that's a great place to start, is talking to them like you would anyone else.
Yeah. And I was watching a show on Gaia about a woman who heals animals, and she was explaining how to just kind of sit and be still and then project your consciousness into the animal as if you are the animal. And then you can also pick up on, you know, how do they feel? What's going on in their life? How can you make their life better? You know, what are they picking up on?
That's
so it's almost
practice.
like that's a good practice. And she heals all these animals all over the world. They call her, and, you know, so she's obviously really developed this gift very intricately, so she can, you know, heal and communicate with not just her own animals, but animals from all over the place. And just like Reiki, you know, everything is energy. So you don't have to physically be in the room with the animal, right? It's like you can pick up, it's like a Bluetooth, right? That's the way I explain it.
Exactly. It's like a cell phone call. It's like, you know, I work in the time and space doesn't exist the way we think it does. And, you know, it exists in the third dimension, but there's other dimensions that we're all moving through and we don't even realize it. And I took animal Reiki too, which is about distant healing. And so I really learned how to do that and practiced it and really honed in on that. But, you know, I think limiting beliefs really prevent us from tapping into these gifts that we have. And if we can really rewire and really look at like, what do we believe isn't possible? Because we're only able to receive as much as we believe. So I think that's something think about.
No, that's absolutely, absolutely. And how the universe communicates with us in a variety of ways through our animals, through
sure.
Nature, and our animals. And our animals are so connected to nature way more than we are, as a human being.
Definitely.
We're learning how to connect more with nature, but I think, our animals are such great teachers, and there's such a different consciousness amongst all the different types of animals as well, from the cat to the dog to even the dolphins and the whales. And so,
my gosh.
Yes, and tapping into those energies. And so I speak light language. And so oftentimes when I can sense Charlie's a little down, I'll speak light language, and that you can feel it, like he immediately perks right up,
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's a frequency. It's a language of love and from the heart, and it's a frequency. And so animals are so much more in tune to their other senses than we are, and they can pick up on that. And so
sure.
Brianna, what are some, maybe a testimonial that you had of an animal that was really struggling, and then after your session, what happened?
Yeah, I recently had a client whose dog was like a smaller, medium-sized dog, and she had this, I could see this, like, it almost looks like a dark, gassy smoke in this area that I was able to see. And it was in the root chakra, and the animal had this fear that it wasn't able to protect its owner properly. Like, it was having this fear that it couldn't protect her while they were out of the house. And so I brought forward this message to her, and I said, I don't know if there's a bigger dog around, but your animal's feeling like it can't protect you. And it's holding this fear that I've cleared out now after doing the color ray. It was a color ray session. And she reported back that there was this dog in the neighborhood that was much bigger than her dog. And I love what you said earlier about like projecting your consciousness into the animal. Like, for me, it's like seeing from their eyes, seeing like this other dog in their neighborhood's huge to him, and he's afraid he's not going to be able to protect her on their walk. And so she let me know that there was this dog in the neighborhood that was much bigger than her dog, who would be off the leash. The owner just let it run about in the neighborhood and would always come up to them and would scare them all to death on their walks frequently. And usually it was like behind a fence, but sometimes the owner would just let it run free. So that week after the session, on their walks, the dog didn't bark, because usually her dog would bark and start freaking out. She didn't know why. And it was because he felt he couldn't protect her. But after our session, he wasn't barking. He was totally calm, and really shifted that within them.
Oh, that's such a good story.
That's really cool.
You don't really even think about the fact that the dog is trying to protect the owner, and that's why the dog is having this trapped emotion, you know?
And it really helps the owner like see like, oh, that's what you're afraid of, because maybe to the owner it's like, well, they're not going to get to me, I'm safe, whatever. But to the dog, that's one of its big missions, is to protect you. So that was a cool one.
That's neat. And I never really grew up around horses, but recently I have a friend who does Reiki, and she works on animals, and she was teaching me how to connect with horses. And horses are just, oh my gosh, the frequency that they hold in the heart. It
gives me chills.
It does. Really. And so, there's and horses oftentimes hold a lot of trauma, more than the average animal. At least that's been my experience around them. So so is there there's no animals that are off limits for you, right? You work with all types of animals?
And I've been lucky enough to do Reiki with horses, and I did not grow up around horses. I really don't know much about them and how, like the terms and all the kind of stuff about horses, but I was lucky enough to do Reiki, and you don't need to know those things. And I learned that horses get moved around a lot, which I didn't know. And they get moved into different homes and different people. And there's such a grounded presence. And there was a horse who was moved around a lot that I got to work with, and he wouldn't come near anyone. He was scared to death. He would stay at the back of the stall if you were to come to the front door. I would never go in the stall, but he would just go to the back. He didn't want anything to do with humans. And I started doing Reiki, and slowly but surely over time, he started coming forward. And there's a lot of signs that I see with Reiki and color healing where they'll start yawning, they'll start like dozing off and falling asleep. But that's the best thing, because they're finding such rest and peace within that, rather than that fight or flight, like always looking out, always being afraid. And Reiki is so beautiful for providing that peace and that rest where their body can heal. Because if you're in that stress hormone of fight or flight, your body can't heal itself. It's busy doing something else. And when you come into that state of relaxation, you really can heal. So that was, and they're so grounded, they're so wise, they're so forgiving for, their circumstances. And that was a huge blessing, that experience.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how, it can happen immediately like that, where they yawn or sleep, or it could take a couple of days and then they're like a different. This happens with humans, with people or animals, when we work in the quantum field and we're working with energy. It's just amazing how everything knows where it needs to go and where it needs to heal,
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that you said that, because really, like, what we as Reiki practitioners are doing are just being a bridge for, this energy to come and flow through. And this work is so subtle that, very logical people who maybe don't believe in it, it's like, well, I don't see any difference in this. I don't see a physical difference, but it's not physical. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes you won't, like you're saying, you won't see those signs. And sometimes the healing takes place later than the session occurred, but they are getting whatever they're needing. And that's beautiful.
It really is. And another more physical remedy I love to use with animals is Bach flower essences. Oh my goodness. So when I moved across the country, I moved from Florida to Washington State. I had the 2 cats with me, and I started giving them, it's called Pet Remedy, and it's made out of flower essences. So it's all natural, but it works on an energetic level. It's very, raises their vibration. And the Pet Remedy one has like 5 different flower essences in it for trauma, fear, and a variety of them. And I tell you what, that between the Reiki and the Bach flower essences, for those cats, for 5 nights to have to stay in hotels, and these were indoor cats that weren't around a lot of people. And
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's only like maybe a few drops in their water, but it works on a vibrational level. And there's like 38 or 39 different flower essences, but they have one specifically for animals. And I have recommended that to so many people, especially the ones that have horses that are bucking all the time or angry, or, it's like, just start putting some Bach flower essences in their water, and then you'll recognize the dogs and the cats. Everything is drinking out of that water.
That's so cool. I love that. There's so much we can do for them. So many natural remedies and in frequency, like you were saying earlier, like they pick up on that so strongly, like with crystals, and like you're saying, flower essence and Reiki, and all of these things are so, I love that it's non-invasive. There's no side effects, I think that's so cool. And I love that. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's like a go-to. I always have it there. If you can't do the Reiki or the energy, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to try this. And also another thing I've recognized that works good is solfeggio frequencies, which are a set of 9 different tones. And you can find these all over YouTube. And I play them during the day on, whether it be on my, on my speaker or on my television. And immediately I recognize my cat. It's like, if he is, kind of tense or irritable, I'll put those on, and it's like he just relaxes and goes right to bed. And so I think that our pets are good indicators as well as to how they respond to things is how we respond to things. So sound, I've got a sound, like a tuning fork or a sound bowl, and my friend plays those, and her animals just love it. It's like they really understand the healing capabilities of light, color, and sound more than I think we do as humans.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that humans hold different codes, and of what their gifts are. And some people it's shapes, some people it's numbers, some people it's sound, some people it's color. And it's really cool to incorporate all of those things for our animals because they pick up on frequency.
They do. And then when we connect as light workers or star seeds together, then they, I'll do that. I'll go out on a hike with some of my friends and I'll come home and he immediately wants to be on my lap. It's like, he's like, Mom, I want some of these codes, like,
Yeah.
where have you been? The energy feels so good. And I'm like, Hey buddy, let me take a shower real quick,
Exactly.
But it's just really funny how they immediately respond. And so is there anything that you feel that we should share, Brianna, that maybe we haven't covered?
Let me think. I think just trying to, I would say working on yourself, going into that for me, like going into my trauma, my limiting beliefs, all the conditioning that stacked up until my spiritual awakening. It's like an undoing of those things. And as we do that, we heal ourselves, we heal the animals. And for me, like once I cleared a majority of that, of course, we're always working on ourselves. We always have things to clear and to heal. But for me, like when I really cleared that stuff out, I was able to hold this space for others. When I learned to hold space for myself, I learned to hold space for the animals. And I remember listening to different podcasts during my spiritual awakening, and they would have mediums and, Reiki healers and, all kinds of different people. And they would say, well, how do you know you had this gift? And they would say, well, I've had it my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I would always be like, well, great. I don't have any gifts because I don't remember mine. But the truth is we all have amazing gifts. And really, once you clear out that stuff, they will come to you in divine timing. So if you haven't discovered your purpose, your mission, what you're here to do, you will. And I just wanted to tell people that so that they don't think they don't have any gifts.
It's so true. It's like these gifts are built in, but they have been suppressed or pushed down from all of the traumas or those denser emotions that we've experienced throughout our whole lifetime. And I do feel that's part of our lessons and our mastery of understanding that, many of us signed up to come here on this planet to clear these generational patterns. And, mm-hmm. There's times here I'm in 3D and I'm like, why did I do this? Like this.
I know. Trust me. I know what you mean.
Yeah. But then there's times when I'm like, oh man, my gifts are so awesome. And, at first it was like, finding out I was an empath, it was like, oh, this is such a burden, but now it's like, oh no, this is a superpower. Like
greatest gift.
Yes, mm-hmm. It's one of the greatest gifts. And a lot of it, you're so on point when you say that our gifts will open up the more we clear those denser emotions. And when I say traumas, it doesn't even have to be, a massive trauma. It's just those limited beliefs, those unconscious thought patterns that we have that are holding us back. And, working with the animals is a way to reflect back to us what we need to heal. So if your animal is struggling with something, ask yourself, where am I struggling with this too? And the body speaks to us so literally. It's like you have a problem in your elbow. Well, what does your elbow do? It bends, right. It's flexible. Where are you not bending in your life? Where are you not being flexible? Your back hurts. Okay. Your shoulders hurt. What do your shoulders do? They hold things for you. What burdens are you carrying? So really, just asking yourself and listening to your body and being more consciously aware of what your pets are going through, and then taking a step back and asking yourself, well, where can I heal this aspect? Because my pet is obviously, projecting this back to me as an area that I need to shine some light on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
They are our greatest teachers and healers. And I'm so grateful for animals and, the whales, the dolphins, the monkeys, the birds, like what they bring to the earth and to us is just infinite gifts. And, I'm just so grateful to have found this passion. I feel like the animals led me here, and I'm just forever grateful for that. So
I love that. So Brianna, if somebody wants to book a session with you, how can they find you? How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, you can visit my website at animalraise.com. You can book a session at animalraise.com/book. And then come be friends with me on Instagram. I love the community that I share there. It's so much fun. Let's be friends. Animal Raise is my handle.
Yes. And she has such a beautiful page. I mean, she's got so many beautiful pictures about her working with the animals and the animal auras. So if you're on Instagram, check her out. That's how I actually found Brianna, was through Instagram. I was very drawn to the beautiful images that she has on her page of all the animals that she has worked with, and then the auras. And I loved how you said it's not for the animals, it's for the humans, but I was definitely drawn to your page. So I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on today, Brianna, and sharing all that you're doing and continuing to shine your light on the world. And, for those of you out there who, if you are in tune with animals, then maybe this is a gift that you can tap into and really learning to develop it. And like I said, it's like a sport or a hobby. It takes some practice, but once you do it, you'll begin to realize that, this may have been a gift that I had in a past life, in a parallel life, or even as a child that maybe I shut down.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, thank you,
It was
Brianna.
an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.